Tonight, the latest from the RCMP blockade after the injunction is enforced to allow access for pipeline workers in Unistoten territory.
Dismissing this motion, subject to hearing further argument in February from all the parties and getting all their perspectives, in our view, is the correct approach.
Canada argues to leave non-status kids out of a principle meant to bring equal access to health services.
Health data, education's data, everything works on data.
And the capital of Nunavut waits for internet speeds others in the north already enjoy. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. We begin in British Columbia, where RCMP remain at 2 anti-natural gas pipeline camps. We're waiting to hear from our reporters on the ground there. In the meantime, here's some background on the matter unfolding on Wet'suwet'en territory. The Coastal GasLink company obtained a court order to remove that gate last month. In response to the court order, members of the Gitmitten clan set up a checkpoint 17 kilometers away in support of the Unistoten camp. Coastal GasLink went back to court to have the injunction amended to include both camps. Yesterday afternoon, the RCMP made their move on the Gitmitten checkpoint.
There was tactical was there. There was, I assume, more intervention officers. There seemed to be a medical team.
That's correct. There was, like I said, support services brought in, which included and certainly not limited to the emergency response team, a tactical team, forensic identification section was in, and we did have our air support, as well as general duty members brought in to assist in this enforcement.
We don't know right now how many anti-pipeline people were at the checkpoint, but what we do know is that 14 people were arrested, including spokeswoman Molly Wickham. Namook's one of the hereditary chiefs of the Saiu clan.
But with Coastal GasLink, just the arrogance of him coming in with already a mindset of this is happening regardless of what we say was totally inappropriate, as they are guests on our territory, and this is considered trespass in our law.
That was yesterday. As we go to air today, the gate on the bridge over the Morris River leading to the Unistoten camp is still up. It's up to the RCMP now to try to enforce that court order, which would open up the bridge to allow Coastal GasLink employees into the area where the planned pipeline would go. We are not being told how opening up the bridge will be done, how many police are involved, or how many Unistoten people and their supporters are going to resist the police action. Supporters of Unistoten have remained at the service road blocked by the RCMP. Our APTN crew on the ground was there. They spoke with Sabina Dennis about why she felt she needed to stay.
We're standing strong with the Wet'suwet'en because for me, I'm Dakelth, and I'm from all the area of where they're the Horn River Basin, where they want to take the oil or the LNG from. And for me, I've always been against LNG right from the tar sands, and I truly believe that unification of our people, of Indigenous people right now, is so critical globally that it makes no sense not to be here right now. And I think that if everyone knew the full story and the broader scope of this industry and what it's been doing globally, I think that there would be many, many more people here. So I'm thankful to media for being here to hopefully get the story, the right story, out to the people that they need to hear. The time is now.
Pipelines have been controversial within First Nations as long as pipelines have been around. APTN has covered many of the stories that have divided communities and the reasons why people are for and against pipelines on their land. Ashley Branson takes us for a look back.
There's a strong opposition to pipelines, but there is also Indigenous support of those projects. Cheem is one of the communities that welcomes the economic development and is one of the nearly 150 Indigenous communities that's along the Trans Mountain Pipeline. It's also one of the 43 First Nations to sign an agreement with Kinder Morgan to build the line. For this community, salmon is known to be sacred. Since the Trans Mountain has run through Cheam since 1953, Chief Ernie Cray says he doesn't think pipelines will have an impact.
We told them that there were lots of issues they had to be mindful of as the pipeline was to be constructed if it was to go ahead. We have our own values and traditions and practices. So for instance, salmon-bearing streams, we told them, would need to be afforded maximum protection.
Stephen Rain is from Enoch Cree Nation in Alberta, another community that signed a mutual agreement for the pipeline.
People don't really care, besides the fact that they just want their hand in some money, you know, so that they get a little bit of money for doing it, I guess, land-wise. But other than that, I never heard anybody talk about it.
But for Rain, it's a way of life.
That's what we do, is do pipeline and oil field work. So I mean, to me, it has to be done. I can't see any other way for it to be.
APTN has been covering both sides of the pipeline debate. The opposition we see today at Unistoten comes from years of resistance. In 2014, Frida Hewson spoke to APTN while blocking the route of the Northern Gateway pipeline, a pipeline project that was eventually cancelled after a failed attempt of consultation and accommodation of the rights and title holders.
5 years ago, we constructed a cabin right on the GPS route of the Enbridge and PTP pipeline, and about a year and a half ago, our strategy was successful because we heard that the company Enbridge and PTP had moved about 1 kilometer and then 3 kilometers downstream or upstream from our cabin. So they changed their route because of the cabin was on blocking their route, and we put a pit house now on the way of PTP and a permaculture garden. We're just developing our own lands to prevent them from trying to put their projects through our lands.
Ashley Branson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
BC Premier John Horgan held a news conference to discuss the RCMP enforcement of this injunction near Houston, BC. Horgan says he respects the rights of people to protest, but believes the builders of the pipeline have done all that is required for them to have the project move forward.
We recognize the right of individuals to protest. We recognize the rights of those across the country who wanted to voice their concerns about this project. However, it has been my view that LNG Canada has shown they understand the importance of consultation and meaningful reconciliation with First Nations, and that's why they have signed agreements with every First Nation along the pipeline corridor. This project represents great opportunity for Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples alike, but it also recognizes and highlights the challenges of reconciliation.
The $6.2 billion pipeline, which is 670 kilometers long, is set to begin this month. We want to hear what you think. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Kamloops, BC, where he'll be holding a town hall question and answer tonight. Leading up to it, dozens of anti-pipeline people rallied. Tamara Pimentel was there.
People from all over the Secwepemc Nation gather outside this Kamloops hotel to have their voices heard as they wait for a town hall meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
I really believe you can't have reconciliation at the end of a barrel of a gun. And what's happened up there, we're really concerned.
They're here to support the members of the Wet'suwet'en Nation who are fighting against a gas pipeline, but they're also continuing the fight against the Trans Mountain oil pipeline, which would run right through the Kamloops area. Prayer songs performed at the entrance of the parking lot while an arrest was made. Police warning, the rally is on private property.
You know, for centuries, violence has been put towards our people for our resource extraction, and it's just upsetting. This day and age, to use this heavily force and violence against our people is really hurtful.
Tsleil-Waututh activist William George says the Trudeau government is disconnected from Indigenous people and their rights.
You know what, me and my elders, we pray hard for him. You know, he's really disconnected, so it's hard for us to see what he's doing and help him in this way. Yeah, he's got to stop lying and be that climate leader that he wants to be. You know, respect our people, respect our rights. This is unceded territory.
The Prime Minister's town hall will be held at 7 p.m. Pacific time. We'll have that story tomorrow. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Kamloops.
We need to take a short break, but when we come back, Canada pushes to have non-status kids bumped from coverage under Jordan's principle. And here's tomorrow's weather forecast. To the east coast, we've got -2 and rain in St. John's, 1 and snow in Halifax, -16 and snow in Nukchak, -11 in Nain, -7 for Rouyn-Noranda and Val-d'Or, and snow there, -1 in Sarnia and Windsor, -7 in Sault Ste. Marie and snow, -21 in snow in Big Trout Lake, -11 and sunny in Thunder Bay, -22 in Puckatawagan, -20 in Thompson and clear skies there. -11s for Barons River, Princess Harbor, and Winnipeg, and snow. -13 in North Battleford, -11 in sunshine in Yorkton. -27 in snow in Stony Rapids, -15 for Buffalo Narrows and La Ronge, and snow in those communities. Welcome back. The battle for equality for First Nations kids across the country resumed today in Ottawa. As anticipated, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal heard a motion from the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society. Here's Annette Francis with more.
The tribunal hearing got underway quickly this morning. According to the Cairns Society, Canada is excluding non-status First Nations children living off reserve from Jordan's principle and is refusing to provide coverage to children even in urgent situations. So the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society is seeking an interim relief order to help First Nations kids in urgent need, pending a full hearing on the matter.
So this motion is also about Canada's refusal to give the benefit of the doubt to children who do not have Indian Act status and do not live on reserve and who have urgent service needs. It's about whether Canada can refuse to provide life-saving or urgently needed care to these children while the parties debate and make submissions to the Tribunal for adjudication regarding what the Tribunal meant when it has said multiple times in its order, all First Nations children.
But Stuart Watke, the lawyer for the Assembly of First Nations, says the AFN agrees in part with the Caring Society's motion for interim relief. But he also says it raises concerns and more questions regarding the First Nations citizenship and who is entitled to benefit from Jordan's principle.
And that is something that the Assembly of First Nations believes may require a full hearing to determine these issues, especially when it comes to the issue with respect to non-status Indians, Inuit, and Métis people. Really, the issue of who is a First Nation child is, and who is a First Nation child or who is a citizen, is essentially a core jurisdiction of First Nation governments. For too long, Canada, other people have determined who First Nation children are.
Jonathan Tarleton, legal counsel for the Attorney General of Canada, says the interim relief should not be granted.
Dismissing this motion, subject to hearing further argument in February from all the parties and getting all their perspectives, in our view, is the correct approach. It does not mean that you are going to be waiting indefinitely for the argument and submissions. You'll still have the opportunity to hear them shortly and then make your determination. But it also still allows for continued respectful consultative dialogue between the parties.
More hearing dates on other matters are set for February, but no decision has been made on the Caring Society's motion. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
An employment program for homeless people in Yellowknife is proving to be successful this winter season. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs was out early this morning to see how the work has given hope to those involved.
It's minus 35, and Floyd, Carl, and Lee, and a handful of other people have been out here since 7 a.m.
Me and him, we started together on Wednesday last week. Yeah.
Common Ground is an employment program that has been running since May 2018 by the Yellowknife Women's Society. They're paid minimum wage, about $13 an hour, to shovel sidewalks, pick up garbage, among other things.
They're more into, like planning for themselves, they could see they can accomplish and succeed at something.
Program coordinator Michael Fatt knows these guys. It wasn't long ago that he was in the same position.
I was on the street and there was nothing. Like I'd wake up in the day, I was ready to change, start, just get myself on the right path and move in the right direction, but really there was no direction you could move into.
It's keeping busy that helped Fatt get off the streets. Now workers like Abel are doing the same.
I like it. It's good. It gives me a sense of confidence at the end of the day, knowing the city's clean.
Yeah. It's given them money to buy things like a cell phone and clothes. First payday, that's super exciting.
Yeah, it is actually. Now I can go to movies, take out my ex-girlfriend, I guess. And yeah.
Floyd says the work has inspired him.
Achieve my goal. Maybe raise a little money for my common law.
Common Ground also runs work training.
As for myself, I'd like to obtain tickets, certificates, basically obtaining my driver's license and sort of like moving up the ladder sort of thing if I can.
It's time for a coffee break, but they'll be back outside working soon enough, putting money in their pocket and planning their next move. Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Time for us to take another break, but first here's the rest of tomorrow's weather forecast. To northern Alberta, we've got minus 17 in Fort Chip, minus 16 in Fort McMurray, minus 8 and sunny in Edmonton, plus 9 in Lethbridge, and plus 3 in Medicine Hat. 9s for Campbell River and Vancouver, rain in those communities. 10 in Tofino and Victoria, minus 25 in snow in Fort Nelson, minus 1 and snow in Prince George, minus 39 in Mayo, minus 25 in snow in Watson Lake, minus 25 and snow in Wrigley, minus 22 in Yellowknife. Tuktoyaktuk is clear, minus 34, minus 29 in Palatec. Minus 32 for Arviat and Whale Cove, and minus 30 in Repulse Bay. Clear skies, and minus 29 in Clyde River, minus 23 in Cape Dorset, minus 27 in Iqaluit. Welcome back. When you live in Nunavut, you learn to do without some of the things that are common in the rest of the country. Internet access and speed is one of those things, but as our Kent Driscoll reports, a growing body of knowledge is showing just how much Nunavut stands to lose with their very slow internet. This from Iqaluit.
Iqaluit's mayor, Madeleine Redfern, has been pushing for better internet access for Nunavut for years. When she attended the Indigenous Connectivity Summit in Inuvik, NWT, late last year, she gave them an example of just how bad it is. All she wanted to do was update Microsoft
It was incredibly
Office.
frustrating. So literally after 12 days of unsuccessfully downloading, I happened to have a trip down to Ottawa, checked into my hotel and, asked it to update, and within 12 minutes on the regular free Wi-Fi, it loaded. I didn't even choose the $5 high-speed option, which I'm sure would have uploaded it much faster.
Redfern isn't exaggerating. I picked up this R2-D2 robot over Christmas. You assemble him. He does R2-D2 things. Sounds like fun, right? In order to even get the instructions, I have to download an app. An app I have been unsuccessfully trying to download since Christmas. That's why my droid is still in a box. That is frustrating. Now take that level of frustration and apply it to the governance of Canada's youngest territory.
So you can do a whole bunch of important, data management, health data, education's data, everything works on data. And if your connectivity is slow and not working, is that you're losing a lot of productivity, but you're also actually not able to work with the data that you need to make good decisions.
According to Redfern, the long-term answer is to stop depending on satellite for internet. She says Nunavut needs a fiber hookup, like every other province and territory in the country.
In Nunavut, when I was there, of course, they announced their second fiber line, and that community is, about 2,500 people. It's not a capital, and good for Nunavut. At the same time, that cost of almost $80 million for that fiber line is probably almost the cost of a fiber line for Iqaluit to be connected to Greenland.
The way the Canadian government has supported Nunavut Internet is through the largest internet supplier, Northwestel. They receive $50 million from the government's Connect to Innovate program, a subsidy given to a retailer that's supposed to be passed on to customers. Does that sound familiar? It should. That's how the Nutrition North program operates, and it is still satellite internet, slow and prone to disruption. Without change, Nunavut's internet future will likely be the same as the past. Slow and expensive. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
On today's episode of In Focus, we discussed issues faced by two-spirited people and the LGBTQ community, and we learned a lot about some things not often discussed enough. Let's take a look.
When we're healing as communities and as people from the disruption of colonization, and especially how violent colonization was for many of our communities, that when we hear these negative things, I don't often equate that as being like the same way that I equate like always as homophobia or as always transphobia. There's a lot of extra layers there that need to be interrogated. And the other thing about it too is that people will look at us, like non-Indigenous people and Indigenous people will just generally look at queer people as being like sexual beings, right? So they think sex and they think that what we do is so different and so gross. And because a lot of, so when we're interrogating queerness, we're also interrogating things like sex and we're interrogating things like gender. And because of our relationship with all of those things because of colonization, that makes it extra difficult for our communities. And so always keeping in mind that kind of patience and that love that Granny or that Kelly, that Kelly expresses is something that I've always been taught by the older Two-Spirit people in the community.
I think that now that the younger people are getting, like people of my generation are getting older, that it's more accepting than it was. Like we still have the odd elder that will say like, no, this is against our whatever, so, but now that we're like, the generation is different now, so, and with all the social media and all the exposure to the two-spiritness or to the gayness or whatever. So it's pretty much there's a lot of more exposure to it now, like like through the libraries, through the story reading to Queens and all that, just little things like that make a big difference.
That is all the time we have tonight. If you missed that episode of In Focus, it's on our website, aptnnews.ca/infocus, or you can watch it here tomorrow morning on APTN at 11 Eastern, 10 Central. That's in the morning. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.